I flipped open my old planner, expecting the usual scribbles and reminders. Instead, a note fell out, and the words were in my handwriting. But I didn't remember writing it. Every line chilled me, because it spoke of secrets and warnings I couldn't recall, yet somehow, it felt urgent. It was a quiet evening. I had returned home from work, exhausted and distracted, tossing my bag onto the couch. My planner, a leather-bound book I had kept for years, sat on the coffee table. I flipped it open, hoping to jot a few reminders for the week ahead. That's when I saw it. A folded note tucked between pages, yellowed slightly at the edges. I opened it, and my breath caught. The handwriting was unmistakably mine, perfectly neat, the loops and slants identical. But I didn't remember writing it. You need to remember. Tomorrow will change everything. Trust no one, not even yourself. The words made my pulse quicken. I reread the note, expecting a trick of memory, a misread line, anything that would explain it. But no, every letter, every word, screamed familiarity and urgency. Questions flooded my mind. When had I written this? Why would I leave a warning for myself? And most terrifying of all, what did I need to remember? I checked the rest of the planner. The days were normal. Meetings, appointments, random doodles. Nothing out of place. And yet, this note existed, like a message from someone I had forgotten, or perhaps from myself, something I hadn't remembered writing yet somehow needed desperately. I couldn't ignore it. I had to follow whatever thread this note was trying to pull me along. Something was coming tomorrow. Something I needed to be ready for. I couldn't stop thinking about the note. The handwriting, it was undeniably mine, yet I had no memory of writing it. I replayed the words in my head, tomorrow will change everything. Trust no one, not even yourself. Who had I been that felt the need to warn me? And what could possibly happen tomorrow that I needed preparation for? I pulled out an old journal, thinking maybe it would jog my memory. Flipping through the pages, I found entries from months ago, thoughts and plans, but nothing that hinted at this note or its ominous warning. I remembered small things, like losing track of time, forgetting meetings, moments when I felt disoriented, but nothing that explained this level of confusion. Was I sleepwalking? Had I written this in a state I couldn't recall? Panic settled into the pit of my stomach. If the note was from me, it meant I knew something important. Something I had blocked from memory. I tried to sleep that night, but the words kept circling my mind. Trust no one, not even yourself. The idea that I might not even trust my own memory was terrifying. By morning, I had resolved to pay attention to every detail. Every phone call, every conversation, every moment could be connected to whatever tomorrow held. The note wasn't just a warning. It was a map. And I had to follow it carefully, or risk missing something I was meant to remember. The morning light felt different that day. Every small sound seemed sharper, every shadow longer. I kept my planner open, staring at the note as if it might reveal more secrets if I looked hard enough. It wasn't just the handwriting, it was the sense of urgency embedded in every stroke, like the version of me that wrote it had known something I didn't yet. On my way to work, I noticed small things I hadn't before, a car that seemed to follow me briefly, a stranger glancing my way twice, a misdelivered letter in the lobby that didn't belong to anyone in my building. My pulse quickened. Was it paranoia, or had the note sharpened my senses? At my desk, I tried to focus on work, but my mind kept drifting back to the warning, tomorrow will change everything. The words felt like a countdown. I reread the note again. Trust no one, not even yourself. Could it mean someone was pretending to be me? Or manipulating my life in ways I couldn't recognize? I remembered the times I'd misplaced keys or lost time, little cracks in my memory. Were they signs? Or coincidences? I decided to start documenting everything, every phone call, every email, every minor anomaly. If tomorrow truly held something critical, I needed a record, something to anchor me to reality. The note had turned a normal day into a careful surveillance of my own life, making me question not just others, but the reliability of my own mind. And deep down, I knew the note was more than a warning. It was a guide. And I had no choice but to follow it. That afternoon, as I left work, I felt a shiver crawl up my spine. The note's words, "Trust no one, not even yourself," echoed in my head. Something was off. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching, waiting for me to slip. On the street, a familiar figure appeared, someone I hadn't seen in months. My old colleague, Claire, waved casually, but her eyes held something different. Sharp. Observant. She approached quickly, too quickly. "Hey, haven't seen you in a while," she said, smiling, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Everything okay?" I hesitated. Should I tell her about the note? Would she believe me, or dismiss it as paranoia? Something in her posture made my chest tighten. I remembered the warning, "Trust no one." I nodded carefully. "Yeah, just busy." My voice sounded smaller than I intended. Claire tilted her head, studying me. "You seem distracted. Are you sure everything's fine?" I forced a smile and walked away, heart racing. Could she be involved? Or was my mind playing tricks on me because of the note? Later, at home, I replayed the day in my head. Every glance, every word, every interaction seemed to carry hidden meaning. The note wasn't just a warning, it was teaching me vigilance, forcing me to notice details I'd always overlooked. I realized that the world around me could no longer feel ordinary. Tomorrow wasn't just another day. It was a turning point. And I had to be ready for whatever came next. That evening, I returned home but couldn't shake the unease. The note's warning lingered in my mind, and I felt compelled to retrace my steps from the previous week, as if the past held clues I had overlooked. I went to the little cafe where I often worked on my planner. The barista recognized me instantly. "You again, late afternoon?" she asked, smiling politely. I nodded, but something felt different. My eyes scanned the cafe, lingering on corners and shadows. Then I noticed it, a small envelope tucked under a chair by the window. My hands trembled as I picked it up. There was no handwriting on the outside, just my initials scribbled faintly in pencil. Inside, a single line stared back at me. "Look where you began. The answers are closer than you think." A cold shiver ran down my spine. Where I began? I whispered aloud. The phrase felt familiar, almost like an echo from the past I couldn't fully remember. I thought about the first day I had started this planner, the first entry, the excitement of organizing my life. Could it really be that simple? That the next clue was tied to the very beginning of this book, the first place I had written down my thoughts? The note didn't just tell me to find something, it forced me to remember, to confront pieces of myself I had buried in memory. I tucked the envelope carefully into my bag, knowing that the next step would be closer than I imagined. Tomorrow, everything would change. And I had no choice but to follow the trail. That night, I went through my planner with meticulous care. Every page, every scribble, every forgotten note could hold a clue. And there it was, something I hadn't noticed before. A faint pencil mark in the corner of a page dated months ago. Don't forget to check the place that started it all. My pulse quickened. The note in my planner had been guiding me for weeks, subtly nudging me toward memories I had forgotten. The handwriting, it was mine, yet it felt like someone else's voice, someone who knew more than I did. I began retracing old routines, the streets I used to walk to work, the cafe where I wrote my earliest entries, even the small park bench where I often paused to think. Each location seemed ordinary, but the memory of writing that planner felt alive again, like a tether pulling me toward answers. I realized that the warning, "Trust no one, not even yourself," wasn't just caution, it was training. I had to observe, to remember, to notice subtle signs I had once ignored. Late at night, I heard the faint buzz of my phone. A text from an unknown number flashed on the screen. "You're closer than you think. Look under the first page." I froze. Could it be connected to the note? Was someone else guiding me, or was it truly a message from myself? The planner had become more than an organizer. It was a map. A guide. And the next step was waiting, hidden in plain sight. The next morning, I opened my planner to the very first page, the page that had started it all. The neat handwriting of months ago stared back at me, accompanied by a small envelope taped carefully to the corner. My hands trembled as I lifted it. Inside was a note, written in my handwriting, but with words I didn't remember composing. "Everything begins where you first believed it could. Look for the key in the place you trusted the most." The words sent a shiver down my spine. "The place I trusted the most," I whispered. My mind raced through possibilities. The cafe where I had my first serious conversation about life plans, the park bench where I often sat to write, even my old apartment. The note felt like a puzzle piece, a thread connecting the scattered fragments of my memory. I flipped back through the pages, tracing my own writing, searching for patterns, signs, anything I had overlooked. Each entry seemed to pulse with hidden meaning now, as if the planner itself was alive. Then I remembered something, the small key I had found months ago, tucked inside a drawer in my apartment. I had dismissed it as meaningless, but now the note made me question everything. Could the key unlock the place where it all began? The sense of urgency I had felt from the first note returned, stronger than ever. The warning, "Tomorrow will change everything," loomed over me, and I realized that I had reached a turning point. The planner, the handwriting, the key, they weren't just objects. They were guides, leading me toward a memory, a truth, and perhaps something I had forgotten about myself. I had no choice but to follow them. And I had to do it carefully. That evening, I retrieved the small key I had found months ago. It had been tucked away in a drawer, forgotten, almost meaningless, until now. The note's words, "Look for the key in the place you trusted the most," echoed in my mind. The planner had already guided me here, but I could feel that the real journey was just beginning. The streets were quiet as I walked, the city's usual hum muted by the late hour. Every shadow seemed alive, every flickering streetlight felt deliberate, as though the world itself was trying to warn me or guide me. I replayed the words of the note in my mind, over and over. "Everything begins where you first believed it could. The key is in the place you trusted the most." The key led me to an old storage locker I had rented years ago, a place I hadn't visited since I had moved apartments. I had originally stored miscellaneous items, thinking they were unimportant. Now, I approached it with caution, heart pounding. My fingers trembled as I slid the key into the lock. It fit perfectly. With a soft click, the door swung open, revealing a small, dusty box inside. I lifted the box carefully. It was heavier than I expected, filled with letters, photographs, and small trinkets, tangible fragments of a past I hadn't consciously remembered. Each item seemed to whisper my own forgotten secrets. I could feel the weight of time pressing down as I opened the first envelope. The handwriting was unmistakably mine, yet the words were urgent and unfamiliar. "Read these carefully. The truth is here, but you must be ready. Trust no one, not even yourself." I felt a shiver run down my spine. The planner, the notes, the key, they weren't just reminders or coincidences. They were a trail, laid by a version of myself I didn't fully remember. A version that had known something crucial, something I had tried to forget or had never consciously realized. I carefully spread the letters and photographs across the locker floor. Each image, each note, seemed connected, forming a puzzle that I had to solve. My pulse raced as I realized the next step was to trace the stories in these letters, to follow the clues they contained, and confront the truths they revealed. This wasn't just about memory. It wasn't just about the past. It was about survival, understanding, and confronting the version of myself that had left these breadcrumbs. I took a deep breath and began reading, knowing that each revelation would bring me closer to answers, and possibly to danger I had never anticipated. I sat cross-legged on the floor of the storage locker, surrounded by letters, photographs, and trinkets that carried pieces of my own forgotten history. The soft hum of the city outside felt distant, as if this small, dusty space existed in another dimension, one suspended between past and present. The first envelope I opened had no date, only my handwriting on the outside. My pulse quickened as I unfolded the paper. The words were clear, precise, yet chilling. You won't remember writing this. But trust that it was necessary. Everything you are about to uncover has been planned, step by step, to prepare you for tomorrow. Watch closely. Observe everything. Believe nothing without proof. The handwriting was unmistakably mine, yet the phrasing felt different, as if written by someone both familiar and strange, a version of myself I had never met. The envelope contained photographs, snapshots of everyday moments I thought I remembered. But in each picture, subtle details hinted at something I had overlooked, a man in the background who shouldn't have been there, a letter on a table that was never sent, eyes glancing at me from shadows I had long since forgotten. I felt the weight of time pressing down. It was as if my past self was reaching across the years, trying to guide me, to warn me, to ensure I wouldn't repeat mistakes or fall into unseen traps. Another letter revealed more, appointments I had missed, notes scribbled in margins I had never seen, cryptic instructions that made no sense without context. And yet, as I pieced them together, I began to see a pattern. This wasn't random. It wasn't coincidence. Someone, or some version of me, had created a trail designed to lead me somewhere. I could feel the tension building in my chest. The note's warning, "Trust no one, not even yourself," echoed louder than ever. Each letter reinforced the idea that my mind had played tricks on me, that I had ignored vital details, that the real story had been hidden in plain sight all along. I realized then that these letters weren't just about memory, they were about survival. Each clue, each instruction, each subtle hint had been laid carefully, like markers on a path only I could follow. And the next letter hinted at something more, a location, a name, a step I would need to take tomorrow. The journey was no longer about discovery alone. It was about understanding why I had written these notes to myself, and whether I would survive the consequences of ignoring them. The next letter guided me to a place I thought I knew, a quiet park near my old apartment. The note had contained nothing more than an address and a time, but it carried the same unmistakable urgency. Go where the first page began. Observe. You must not miss it. I walked through the familiar streets, but everything seemed different. Shadows stretched longer than they should, and the wind whispered faintly as if carrying warnings I couldn't quite decipher. Each step felt both familiar and foreign, like walking in a memory that had been altered while I slept. Arriving at the park, I noticed the bench where I used to sit to organize my thoughts, long before this planner became central to my life. There, tucked beneath the slats, was another envelope. My heart raced as I picked it up. The handwriting, mine, was identical to the previous letters, but the words were sharp, deliberate. Look closely. What seems ordinary is never as it appears. Someone has been watching, and you are not yet safe. Trust your instincts. Follow the pattern, not the face. Inside were photographs again, but this time they included people I didn't recognize, always lurking at the edges of moments I thought were private. There were notes about routines, small discrepancies in my life I had dismissed as coincidence, items missing from my apartment, odd phone calls with no voicemail, someone entering and leaving unnoticed. A chill ran down my spine. My past self had anticipated all of this. The planner, the key, the letters, they were not just reminders. They were survival tools, steps laid out in advance to prevent me from being blindsided. I sat on the bench, piecing together the evidence, noting each subtle pattern, when the photographs were taken, the timing of small anomalies, the way shadows appeared in each image. I realized the warning, "Trust no one, not even yourself," had deeper meaning. I couldn't rely on memory alone, I had to rely on observation, patience, and reasoning. The envelope contained one final slip of paper, a map, crude but clear, marking the next location. My pulse quickened. The journey was no longer theoretical, it was imminent. Tomorrow, everything would come together. And I would have to decide if I was ready to confront the truth my past self had hidden from me. Following the map, I arrived at a small, nearly forgotten alley near my old workplace. The note had led me here with simple instructions: observe the pattern. Everything is connected. I took a deep breath and began walking slowly, scanning every detail, the walls, the windows, even the graffiti. Every mark could be a clue, every shadow could conceal a message. On a rusted bench at the alley's end, I found another envelope. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. The words were mine, as always, yet they felt like they came from someone who had lived a parallel life, a self I had written into existence to protect me. The threads connect. Look at faces you trust. Note those who appear more than once. They will guide you, or mislead you. Your instincts will be tested. Remember, the truth is not always what it seems. Inside the envelope were photographs of familiar places, but something was different. Each image contained subtle anomalies, a figure in the background, a missing object, a shadow that didn't match the light. I realized my past self had noticed things I had dismissed as trivial, and had documented them carefully, guiding me now. I felt a wave of anxiety mixed with awe. The planner, the letters, the key, they weren't just about memory. They were about pattern recognition, about learning to trust intuition over assumption. My past self had anticipated deception, mistakes, and confusion, and had prepared a breadcrumb trail for me to navigate safely. I spent hours cross-referencing the photographs, the letters, and the notes, gradually seeing connections. A familiar man appeared in multiple photos, always on the periphery. A neighbor's dog, a stray newspaper, the angle of the sun, each element contributed to a hidden timeline, a story my conscious mind had overlooked. By nightfall, the pieces started to align. I understood that the warning, "Trust no one, not even yourself," was not paranoia, it was preparation. I had been given tools to see the truth, to uncover the secrets my memory had buried. Tomorrow would bring the final revelation. The truth my past self had protected me for was within reach. The night before the revelation, I sat at my desk surrounded by every letter, photograph, and note I had collected. The planner lay open before me, pages worn and familiar, yet alive with a sense of urgency I couldn't ignore. My mind raced, piecing together clues, patterns, and hidden warnings from my past self. The letters had become more than instructions, they were a reflection of someone I had been, someone cautious, observant, and determined to survive a truth I had long buried. The repeated phrase, "Trust no one, not even yourself," haunted me. I understood now that it was not only a warning about others, but also a challenge to trust my own instincts, even when memory faltered. I traced connections between photographs, a man who appeared in multiple frames, always on the edge of perception, a familiar street corner that seemed ordinary but held significance when paired with a cryptic note, and a small envelope tucked under the cafe table where I used to write, hinting at a secret message I had once overlooked. The key, which had led me to the storage locker, had revealed more than just objects, it had unlocked awareness. Each letter and photograph was a lesson, each envelope a test of perception and patience. I realized that tomorrow wasn't just about discovery, it was about readiness. The past self who wrote these notes had foreseen obstacles, distractions, and moments when doubt could have derailed me. Hours passed as I mapped everything out, arranging the notes and photographs in chronological and thematic order. Patterns emerged, repeated appearances, subtle inconsistencies, and deliberate warnings. The message was clear. The next step would lead me to the culmination of this carefully orchestrated trail, a place where the truth waited to be revealed. I double-checked my bag. The key, the letters, and the planner were all ready. I felt a mix of fear, anticipation, and resolve. I had followed every breadcrumb, deciphered every cryptic message, and now I was prepared to confront the final piece of the puzzle. Tomorrow, the journey would end. And the truth, carefully hidden, meticulously planned, would finally be mine to face. The next morning, I set out with the planner, letters, and key securely in my bag. Every step toward the final location felt heavier than the last. The city seemed quiet, almost holding its breath. My heart raced, but there was clarity now, a calm under the storm. I had followed the trail, deciphered every clue, and the moment of truth had arrived. The final location was a small, unassuming library tucked between two tall buildings. I had passed it countless times, but today it felt different, charged with significance. Inside, the air smelled of old paper and varnish. I followed the notes to a table near the back, where a single envelope awaited, taped delicately to the underside. I lifted it and found a letter, written in my handwriting, but with a precision and urgency that only my past self could have produced. You have come this far. The truth is yours, but remember, every detail matters. Someone has been watching, guiding, and testing you. Trust your instincts. The answers will reveal themselves, but you must choose wisely what to accept and what to question. Beneath the letter was a small journal, my own from years ago, long forgotten. As I opened it, memories flooded back, moments I had buried, fears I had ignored, choices I had once made. It all connected, the missing items, the strange encounters, the shadowy figures. I realized now that the warnings were not just about danger, they were about self-trust. For the first time, I understood the note's meaning. My past self had prepared me for a challenge I hadn't realized existed. The letters, the key, the photographs, they had guided me not only to the truth but to myself. I was stronger, sharper, and more aware than before. I took a deep breath, feeling a strange mixture of relief and triumph. The planner had been a guide, a warning, and a friend. And now, the mystery that had haunted me for weeks finally made sense. I left the library feeling lighter, carrying the notes and planner close to my chest. The world felt sharper, yet warmer, a place full of subtle truths I was now equipped to see. I had confronted the unknown, trusted my instincts, and discovered the person I had become in the process. Sometimes, messages arrive from ourselves, forgotten, hidden, or mysterious, reminding us that memory, instinct, and courage are intertwined. This story shows that even the smallest clues can lead to the greatest discoveries about who we are. If this journey of secrets, notes, and self-discovery moved you, make sure to like, subscribe, and share, because some messages are meant to find us exactly when we need them most.